She thought it was just a stranger paying for her groceries, until 3 black SUVs parked outside her apartment. A struggling mother, a quiet act of kindness, and a secret that could get her and her daughter taken. Who was the man in the black t-shirt? And why are dangerous people now watching her every move? Before we continue this incredible story, let us know where you're watching from. If you enjoy stories like this, subscribe to the channel, because tomorrow we have another inspiring story you won't want to miss. The fluorescent lights flickered slightly above aisle 9, humming like distant wasps. Rosa Martinez adjusted the sleeve of her faded denim jacket and tried not to sigh as she counted the crumpled bills in her hand for the 3rd time. $11.32. Not enough. Not nearly enough for the cart she was pushing. Sophia, her 4-year-old daughter, sat in the child seat of the cart holding her favorite plush giraffe and asking questions in that high, sweet voice that only made Rosa's heart ache more. "Mommy, can we get the Stars cereal? The one with the sparkles on the box?" Sophia's eyes lit up as she pointed at a shelf bursting with color. Rosa glanced at the price tag, $5.79. Nearly half of what she had. She smiled gently and brushed Sophia's curls from her forehead. "Maybe next time, mi amor. Today we're just getting the essentials." Sophia nodded with that quiet acceptance Rosa had come to know too well. She never threw tantrums in stores, never screamed for candy or toys like other children. Rosa had taught her early what the word no meant, and now it echoed far too often in their lives. Their cart held a loaf of bread, a jar of peanut butter, a small container of milk, and a few bruised bananas from the discount bin. Rosa had skipped the eggs, knowing they'd gone up another 70 cents this week. Every dollar mattered. Every cent had to stretch, like rubber bands pulled too tight. As they reached the checkout line, Rosa felt her chest tighten. There were 4 people ahead of them, and more lining up behind. She forced her thoughts away from the electricity bill, due Friday, and tried to smile at Sophia, who was softly humming to her stuffed animal. The cashier was a teenage boy with kind eyes and a tired posture. His name tag said Danny. Rosa had seen him before. He never looked at her the way some others did, never with pity or annoyance. That helped a little. "Hi," he said politely as he started scanning her items. Rosa nodded and opened her worn wallet. She took out the debit card linked to the bank account she checked every night. It had $36 last she checked, but there had been a gas payment yesterday. She hadn't tracked it. She couldn't remember the exact amount. She slid the card and held her breath. The screen beeped once, then again. Transaction declined. Rosa froze. A hot wave of shame crawled up her neck. Behind her, someone shifted impatiently. A cough. A sigh. The unspoken judgment pressed in from every direction. "I'm so sorry," she said, barely louder than a whisper. "Let me just try it again." She re-swiped the card, praying she'd made a mistake. Declined. Sophia looked up from her giraffe. "Mommy, is everything okay?" Rosa nodded quickly, her eyes starting to sting. She began pulling items off the belt. Rosa's fingers trembled as she reached for the milk. She'd have to put that back. Then maybe the peanut butter? If she could just cover the bread and bananas, they'd manage. She'd mix warm water with the last bit of instant oatmeal tomorrow morning. Maybe slice half a banana to make it feel like a real breakfast. "Excuse me," a man's voice said from just behind her, low and calm. Rosa turned, startled. A tall man in simple jeans and a worn black t-shirt stood a few feet away. His hair was a little unkempt, falling across his forehead, and his voice had a quiet steadiness to it that made the chaos in her head pause for a second. His face seemed oddly familiar, though she couldn't place him. "Not here, not now." "I've got it," he said, already reaching for his wallet. "No," Rosa said quickly, her cheeks flushing. "Please, I can't let you do that." He looked her directly in the eyes, not with pity, but something softer. Respect, maybe, or understanding. He didn't move closer, just held her gaze and replied, "I insist. I have a daughter too." Those 6 words disarmed her more than any amount of money could have. She nodded slowly, too overwhelmed to speak as he handed his card to the cashier. Danny didn't ask questions. He ran the card, bagged the items, and slid them gently toward her. "You're all set," he said, giving Rosa a small smile. The man thanked Danny with a quiet nod, then turned back to Rosa. "You don't need to pay me back. Just keep doing what you're doing. You're doing great." Her throat tightened. No one had said that to her in months. "Thank you," she whispered, the words breaking in her mouth. I don't know what to say." He shrugged with that same calmness. "You already said it. Take care of your little one. That's more than enough." Sophia held up her giraffe. "Do you have a giraffe too?" The man chuckled, a real warm laugh that caught Rosa by surprise. It changed his whole face, made him look younger somehow. "No giraffe, but I do have a dog named Marvin. He's very silly." "That's a good name," Sophia decided seriously. "Thanks," he said with a wink. As Rosa picked up the bags, the man reached for the cart and pushed it alongside her toward the exit. He wasn't in a rush. He just moved with her like they were old neighbors. Like this moment wasn't unusual at all. "I'm Rosa," she said quietly, "and this is Sophia." He smiled. "Nice to meet you both. I'm just Keanu." There was something in the way he said it that made Rosa pause. But before she could ask anything more, he waved once, turned back toward the parking lot, and disappeared into the sun. Rosa stood at the automatic doors for a long moment, blinking against the afternoon glare. The bags felt heavier now. Not with weight, but with something else. Grace, maybe. Or disbelief. Sophia tugged on her sleeve, already talking about the peanut butter and how she wanted to make smiley-face sandwiches when they got home. Rosa nodded, trying to stay present, but her mind was still spinning. Who was that man? Something about his eyes had struck her, deep brown, a little sad, but steady. And his voice. She couldn't shake the feeling that she'd heard it before. She got Sophia into her car seat, loaded the bags into the trunk, and sat in the driver's seat for a moment without starting the car. The dashboard clock blinked. 2:24 p.m. She was supposed to be at work by 3. Just a 4-hour shift at the small local bookstore, but it paid enough to cover internet and a portion of the rent. As she pulled out of the parking lot, she scanned the rows of cars, looking for him, hoping to spot him just once more. But there was no sign of Keanu. No black t-shirt, no kind smile. It was like he'd evaporated the moment he stepped out of sight. Halfway home, Sophia dozed off in the back seat, her giraffe curled in her arms. Rosa glanced at her through the rearview mirror and felt a tear slip down her cheek. She quickly wiped it away. There wasn't time for emotions right now. There was laundry to do, a shift to cover, and bills still waiting at home on the counter. But the feeling wouldn't leave. It clung to her like a warm scarf on a cold morning. Someone had seen her. Not just noticed her, but seen her. And that made the burden feel just a little lighter. She pulled into their apartment complex, a faded beige building surrounded by chain-link fences and cracked pavement. Kids ran barefoot through puddles near the dumpsters. Someone's television blared through an open window. She parked beside a minivan with a missing mirror and carried Sophia inside, still half asleep. The apartment was small, 2 rooms, one of which doubled as a bedroom and living space. Rosa set the groceries on the counter and unpacked them slowly, like each item was a gift. The bananas weren't as bruised as she thought. The bread smelled fresher than usual. Even the peanut butter felt special. Sophia stirred on the couch, yawning as she stretched. "Did we get the sparkly cereal?" "No, sweetheart," Rosa said softly. "But we got something better. We got help." Sophia smiled and hugged her giraffe tighter. For Rosa, it had seemed like a random act of kindness from a stranger. Something good in a world that so often felt harsh. She didn't know who he really was. She didn't know what was coming. But by midnight, everything would change. And it would all begin with the sound of tires crunching gravel outside their apartment and the headlights of 3 black SUVs pulling up to the curb. The apartment walls were thin. Every argument, every creaking pipe, every late-night shuffle from the upstairs neighbor bled through like a whisper you couldn't block out. Rosa had grown used to it. Some nights it kept her awake. Others, it reminded her she wasn't alone and struggling. After dinner, 2 peanut butter sandwiches cut into shapes for Sophia and 1 plain for herself. Rosa tucked her daughter into their pull-out couch. She sat on the edge of the mattress, brushing Sophia's curls off her forehead as the child whispered a thank you to her plush giraffe. Then she closed her eyes and drifted to sleep with the pure, unburdened peace only a child could manage. Rosa stood up slowly, her back aching from another long day. She didn't turn on the TV. Instead, she sat at the small kitchen table with a stack of unopened mail. Most of it was junk. A flyer for pizza delivery, a coupon for tires she didn't need, a bright red envelope from the electric company. She opened it carefully, past due. $42.70, due in 3 days, or service would be interrupted. Rosa closed her eyes and rested her forehead in her hand. She had $38 left in her account after rent and groceries. She'd have to borrow from Mrs. Alvarez again or ask for an extra shift at the bookstore, if her boss hadn't already filled them. Asking for help made her stomach turn. She hated being someone else's burden. Her gaze drifted to the grocery bag still sitting on the floor by the fridge. Inside was the jar of peanut butter the stranger had paid for. Keanu. Just Keanu, he'd said. A stranger who had stepped in with no questions, no hesitation, and left with nothing but a quiet smile. She still couldn't shake the feeling that she'd seen him before, somewhere beyond that store aisle. But why would someone like that, someone so kind, so calm, be walking alone in a discount grocery store in East LA? She pulled the bag up onto the table and carefully took out the receipt that had been folded in with the groceries. She didn't know why, but something made her want to keep it. Proof that the moment had happened, that someone had seen her and chosen kindness. She smoothed the paper flat and tucked it into an old coffee can she used for keepsakes. Inside were only a few items. A photo of her husband in his hard hat, smiling at a job site. Sophia's first drawing of a giraffe. A bracelet Rosa's mother had given her when she graduated high school. The receipt joined them. Outside, the street lights buzzed softly. Rosa stood at the small window over the sink, sipping lukewarm tap water and looking down at the sidewalk below. A few teenagers loitered near the chain-link fence. One of them kicked a soda can across the pavement. Somewhere, a dog barked behind a closed door. Her mind drifted back to her husband, Marco. It had been 3 years since the accident. He'd been working on a residential high-rise in downtown Los Angeles when a faulty scaffold collapsed. He was only 29. Rosa had gotten the call while feeding Sophia strained carrots. She remembered the orange spoon frozen mid-air, the silence that followed, the long ride to the hospital, and the way everything after felt like falling through the floor. The settlement helped for a while, but legal fees, funeral costs, and basic living expenses drained most of it, and no dollar amount could replace the way Marco used to laugh when Sophia made up stories about her stuffed animals, or the way he'd dance around the kitchen to old cumbia songs just to make Rosa smile. Since then, she'd worked every job she could find, cleaning houses, translating medical forms, babysitting when other mothers had to work late. The bookstore was the first job that gave her regular hours and a quiet corner to catch her breath, but it didn't pay much, and they were always one step from the edge. Still, she never let Sophia see her worry. That little girl had already lost too much. Rosa rinsed her glass, set it in the sink, and turned off the kitchen light. The apartment fell into a comfortable dimness, lit only by the soft glow of a plug-in nightlight shaped like a star. She walked quietly back to the couch and knelt beside Sophia, brushing her hair once more. The child stirred but didn't wake. As Rosa stood to go to bed, a faint sound caught her attention. Not a shout, not a crash, something subtler. Tires rolling over loose gravel. She walked quietly back to the window and lifted the curtain just an inch. A black SUV was parked across the street. Its engine was still running. She could see the faint shimmer of tinted glass reflecting the nearest streetlight. The vehicle didn't move. No one got out. Her first thought was that someone was visiting a neighbor, but most of the neighbors didn't drive cars like that, not in this part of town. She watched for another 30 seconds. Nothing changed. Then she let the curtain fall and backed away from the window. Her hands were suddenly cold. She told herself it was nothing, maybe just a rideshare waiting on someone, maybe someone lost. But the feeling in her chest said otherwise. Rosa walked slowly to her bedroom, not turning her back on the window until she reached the doorframe. She paused to glance once more at Sophia. The girl was deep in sleep, her tiny hand curled around the giraffe's neck like it was a lifeline. Rosa shut the bedroom door quietly behind her. The room was barely large enough to fit a twin bed and an old dresser. On the wall, a peeling photo of Marco and baby Sophia at the beach still clung to a thumbtack. The edges had curled from humidity over the years, but she couldn't bring herself to take it down. She lay down without changing clothes. Her thoughts raced faster than her body could follow. Who sat in that SUV? Had they been watching her? Or was she simply tired, making shadows out of headlights? But then she remembered the way the stranger looked at her. Not like a stranger, like someone who knew something, like someone who had seen this kind of struggle before. She closed her eyes, trying to settle her mind, but sleep didn't come easily. When she finally drifted off, it was shallow and restless. Outside, the SUV remained parked for nearly an hour before slowly backing away and disappearing into the night. Inside the vehicle, a man in a dark suit reviewed a photo on his phone. It was a grainy image from the grocery store's security footage. A woman with brown hair, pulled back into a bun, holding a small child. A man in a black t-shirt just behind her. The system had flagged the face, and that's what brought them here. The second man in the back seat adjusted the radio to a static channel, masking the conversation. "Confirm identity?" the driver asked. The man in the back nodded. "It's him." "And the woman?" "Unknown, but if he helped her, she's not just anyone. We keep watching." The driver glanced at the apartment building again, then merged quietly onto the street. Headlights dimmed until they were out of view. Back in the apartment, Rosa stirred in her sleep. She dreamed of Marco standing at the grocery store reaching for her wallet, but when she looked up, it wasn't Marco. It was the stranger from earlier, the man who called himself Keanu. He held out his hand, but behind him shadows gathered. Black SUVs, blinding headlights, men she couldn't see clearly, but who seemed to know her name. She woke with a gasp and sat up straight in bed. The room was silent. She held her breath and listened for the hum of a car engine outside. Nothing, just the occasional creak of the apartment above and the faint drip of a leaky faucet. She lay back down and pulled the blanket tight over her chest. Still, her heart didn't slow, and in the morning, she would find something waiting at her door. Keanu had arrived in East LA just after noon, unshaven and dressed in quiet clothes. No handlers, no entourage, just a hoodie, a worn ball cap, and the intention of going unnoticed. He wasn't there for a shoot, a premiere, or a press event. What had brought him here was something quieter. For weeks, he'd been developing the blueprint of a new project, one that didn't involve scripts or cameras. A small community-based charity that gave direct aid to single parents. No bureaucracy, no headlines, just help, human to human. He wanted to understand the people he aimed to serve, not from spreadsheets or second-hand reports. He wanted to walk where they walked, shop where they shopped, feel the reality they lived in every single day. The corner grocery store wasn't part of the plan. He'd just been walking, taking in the rhythm of the neighborhood. The mural-covered walls, the cracked sidewalks, the mother pushing a stroller while answering 2 phones. Then he saw the store across the street, faded signage and rusted carts, and something about it made him turn. Inside, the air was stale, the lighting dim. He walked the aisles without touching much, observing. No one paid him attention. That was how he preferred it. Then he saw her. She stood by the discount bananas, lifting each one gently, choosing carefully, with a little girl at her side, and the quiet presence of someone used to doing without. There was something about her expression, concentration mingled with fatigue, that made him pause. She looked like someone doing battle with the math of survival in her head. And that look, he'd seen it before. He had seen it on his mother's face when he was 12 and the rent was due. He had seen it in his own eyes in the mirror after Jennifer passed. He had seen it again when his sister was in the hospital, tubes in her arms, him feeling powerless. He didn't know her story, but he didn't need the details. He knew enough. He stood 2 aisles away, keeping his distance, just watching, not with pity, with respect, with the kind of recognition that passes silently between strangers who've both known pain. When he saw her at the checkout, card declined, panic just beneath the surface, he stepped forward. He didn't hesitate. The exchange was simple, the cost wasn't high. But he knew in that moment, the real value wasn't in the groceries, it was in being seen, in someone stepping in, without shame or permission, to say, "You're not invisible." When the woman, Rosa, thanked him, he nodded and left. He didn't tell her his last name, he never did. Keanu stepped into the parking lot with the California sun warming the back of his neck. He had parked down the block, deliberately away from security cameras. As he walked, he passed a man leaning against a dented sedan, scrolling through his phone. Their eyes met briefly. The man didn't say a word. Keanu got into his rental car and sat still for a moment before starting the engine. His mind returned to the little girl's voice asking about giraffes. The way Rosa had tried to refuse his help, not out of pride but out of dignity. That mattered to him. He admired it. As he pulled away, he never noticed the faint click of a camera shutter from across the street. One quick snapshot, taken through a cracked windshield by a teenager named Luis, who worked evenings at a nearby taco truck. Luis didn't even recognize Keanu at first, but something about the moment felt worth capturing. 2 hours later, Luis uploaded the photo to a small East LA community page. The caption was simple: "Some guy helped this lady pay for groceries. Cool to see people still care." It didn't take long. By midnight, someone in the comments claimed it was Keanu Reeves. Another shared a blurry side-by-side photo. A third said they'd seen him in LA just days ago. Within 12 hours, the post had exploded. It jumped from the local group to regional pages, then to Instagram, then to Twitter, then to the news. People dissected the image like a crime scene. The height, the hair, the posture. Was it really him? Keanu, meanwhile, had shut off his phone. He had no idea what was happening. By the next day, one of his team members reached out through a private messaging app. A short message appeared on his screen. "You're trending again. Grocery store. Woman with daughter. Want us to respond?" Keanu sighed, leaning back in the old leather chair in his modest home office. "No," he typed. "Say nothing. Let it pass." But it didn't pass. The story wasn't about celebrity. It was about a single mother, a moment of humanity, and people latched onto it. Dozens of news sites ran stories with headlines like, "Mystery man buys groceries for struggling mom. Was it Keanu Reeves?" and "Hollywood star spotted doing good in the most unexpected way." Keanu's image was circulated again and again. But something else started happening too. The story shifted focus. People began asking, who was the mother? What's her story? Is she okay? Bloggers, journalists, and online sleuths zoomed in on the photo. They didn't recognize Rosa, but they tried to find her anyway. And somewhere in that digital storm, a much darker circle of people took interest. Not the fans, not the gossip sites, but those who had long been watching Keanu Reeves for very different reasons. They had watched quietly for years. They didn't care about movies, or charity, or kindness. They cared about access. Keanu Reeves had walked away from a deal 15 months ago, a tech contract involving powerful lobbying firms and private intelligence work overseas. He'd refused to endorse it, refused to remain silent, quietly but firmly. That had cost certain people money and influence. For a while it had been whispers, then cold emails, then offers. But now, Keanu had surfaced again, and not just anywhere. He had shown up in East LA, alone, off-grid, no security, no protection, with a vulnerable woman and child nearby. That gave them something they hadn't had in years. A thread, a weakness. One of the men reviewing the photo in a dim office thousands of miles away enlarged the image of Rosa's face. He clicked a button, uploading it into a facial recognition database built on scraped security footage and third-party apps. Within seconds, her name appeared. Rosa Martinez, 32, widowed, one dependent. No criminal record, low income. Apartment listed as vulnerable to eviction within 6 months. No known ties to Reeves. That made her useful. But more than that, it made her exposed. Back in LA, Keanu sat in his home, unaware. He didn't use social media. He wasn't watching the firestorm online. But something unsettled him. He glanced down at the small notebook beside him. On one page, he had scribbled 2 lines after leaving the grocery store. Her name was Rosa. She reminded me of my mother. He tapped the page lightly, then closed the notebook. That afternoon, he made one quiet call to a friend on his private team, someone with security experience. Run a basic sweep, Keanu said. Nothing aggressive, just let me know if anyone starts asking about her. You think she's at risk? The friend asked. Keanu paused. I don't know. Probably not. But something felt different this time. And it was. That night, while Rosa slept in her small apartment, a new photo was taken. This time, it wasn't from a cracked windshield or an innocent bystander. It was from across the street, inside a black SUV. A new camera lens captured Rosa's silhouette through the apartment curtain. A man in a leather seat marked a timestamp. Another one texted the image to a number with no contact name. No words, just the photo. Within minutes, the response came. Proceed. Back at Keanu's home, the night was quiet. But for the first time in a long while, he dreamed vividly. Of a child in danger. Of a woman crying out. Of himself, helpless to stop what was coming. In the morning, he would wake with a single name on his lips. Rosa. The morning sun slipped through the blinds as Rosa packed Sophia's lunch. 2 slices of toast with peanut butter, a banana cut into small pieces, and a juice box with a smiley face drawn on it. Sophia was still brushing her teeth in the bathroom, humming to herself between swishes. Rosa glanced at the clock. She had 20 minutes to get Sophia to daycare and herself to the bookstore, just enough time if the bus wasn't late. They left the apartment in a hurry, hand in hand. Rosa always walked Sophia inside the center, never just dropped her off. It gave her peace. After a quick hug and one last look at her daughter's face, she stepped back out into the street. She didn't notice the silver sedan parked half a block down, windows tinted, engine off. At the bookstore, she clocked in right on time. It was quiet that morning. Wednesday mornings usually were. She straightened the children's section, wiped down the shelves, and restacked a table near the front with leftover clearance items. Around 9:45, the bell above the front door rang. She looked up, but saw no one. On the counter was a box. Medium size, plain, sealed with brown tape. No one stood near it. No one had walked in that she could remember. Just the quiet bell and then the box. Her manager, Tasha, peeked around the corner. "Customer dropped something off?" Rosa shrugged. "It was just..." Tasha walked over, looked at the box, and raised an eyebrow. "Better check it. Could be a donation." Rosa opened the lid slowly. Inside, wrapped in brown paper, was a neat stack of children's books. New ones, hardcover, titles she recognized from expensive catalogs she could never afford. Sophia's favorites. She lifted the first one and found a small envelope tucked beneath it. She opened it, fingers trembling just slightly. The note was written in careful cursive. For Sophia. She deserves to dream. No signature, no return address. Just those words. Tasha leaned over. "From a friend?" Rosa shook her head. "I don't know." Her heart beat faster. This wasn't a coincidence. Someone knew her daughter's name. Someone knew where she worked. She finished her shift with the books stacked neatly under the counter. She didn't say anything more about them, but the whole time, her thoughts raced. Who had sent them? Keanu? If so, how did he know where she worked? And if it wasn't him, then who else had been watching? She held the note in her apron pocket all afternoon, reading it between customers. The message was kind, gentle even. But the mystery behind it unsettled her. The unknown had weight. When Rosa picked Sophia up that evening, she didn't mention the books. She wanted to wait until they were home, until she could see her daughter's face light up without questions hanging over the moment. The bus ride home was longer than usual. Construction had backed up traffic, and the air conditioning was out again. Rosa held Sophia close, wiping the sweat from her forehead with a folded napkin from her lunch bag. Back at their apartment, Sophia immediately kicked off her shoes and dropped onto the couch, asking for cartoons. Rosa smiled, went to her bag, and slowly pulled out the bundle of books. She knelt in front of Sophia. "These are for you," she said softly. Sophia's eyes lit up. "All of them?" Rosa nodded. "Someone gave them to us. They didn't say who." Sophia reached for the top book with excitement, flipping pages and pointing out the animals she recognized. For a few minutes, Rosa let herself forget the strangeness. She watched her daughter lose herself in wonder, the way only a child can. But as the sun began to dip outside, the unease returned. She made dinner, simple rice and vegetables, and tucked Sophia into bed a little earlier than usual. The girl protested, of course, but Rosa insisted. She said she was just tired. Sophia didn't need to know about the tightness in her chest. Once the apartment was quiet, Rosa sat by the window again. At first, all seemed normal. A few cars passed, a neighbor walked her dog. Someone carried groceries up the stairs of the next building. But then she saw it. Two black SUVs parked across the street, just at the edge of the street lamp's reach. Their windows were dark, their engines off. They didn't belong there. No one in the complex drove vehicles like that. She watched them for several minutes. No one got out, no one moved. She stepped back from the window and turned off the living room light. Her heartbeat drummed in her ears. She sat in the dark, hidden behind the curtains, and kept her eyes on the SUV. Something was wrong. Were they police? No lights, no markings. Were they private security of some kind? Or worse? The box of books now felt different. Less like a gift, more like a warning. Like a hand reaching inside her life when she hadn't asked. She thought again of the man at the store, his quiet eyes, the way he never offered a last name. Could he really be who people said he was? She hadn't even known his full identity. And now, strangers were outside her home. She sat still for over an hour, barely breathing. Then the SUVs drove off, one after the other, without headlights. Her phone buzzed once. Unknown number. No message. She didn't open it. She just turned it over, screen down. Rosa couldn't sleep. She got up twice to check the locks, once more to peek out the window. Each time, the street was empty, but the unease only deepened. By morning, her hands shook as she poured Sophia's cereal. She tried to smile, to laugh, to make light of it. But even Sophia could sense something had changed. "Why are you sad, Mommy?" she asked quietly. Rosa knelt beside her. "I'm not sad, baby, just thinking too much." To work, she tried to shake the feeling, but her eyes kept drifting to the door. Every customer who lingered too long near the children's section made her stomach tighten. Around noon, a man entered wearing dark clothes and sunglasses. He didn't speak, just walked slowly through the aisles. Rosa stayed near the counter, pretending to dust. He left without buying anything. Tasha didn't notice, but Rosa did. Later that afternoon, a flower delivery arrived. A single white lily. No vase, no ribbon, just the bloom and a blank envelope. Inside, a note. "She's being watched. So are you." Rosa's breath caught. Her knees weakened. She clutched the counter for balance. Tasha noticed then. "Hey, you okay?" Rosa nodded quickly. "Just low blood sugar." She excused herself to the back room, shut the door, and slid down against it. Her heart pounded, her vision blurred. She didn't know who to call. The police? What would she say? That someone sent her flowers and books? She opened her phone and stared at the blank message thread from the unknown number the night before. Her fingers hovered over the screen. Finally, she typed, "Who are you?" She hit send. Seconds passed. Then, minutes. No reply. She waited, biting her lip until it bled. Nothing. That night, Rosa kept all the lights on. She didn't open the blinds. She didn't go near the window. When Sophia asked why, she said it was a power game, that they were pretending to be inside a castle, hiding from dragons. The little girl believed her. Laughed, even. Built a fort from couch cushions. But Rosa couldn't laugh. Not this time. Because when she took the trash out before bed, she saw the same black SUV parked at the end of the alley, engine off. But this time, the door on the passenger side was cracked open, just slightly, like someone had gotten out and not come back. By Saturday morning, Rosa's nerves felt stretched thin. Every sound outside the window, every knock on the wall from the next apartment, made her jolt. She tried to hide it from Sophia, but her daughter had grown quieter, more observant. The brightness in her eyes dimmed a little more each day, as if she sensed her mother was carrying something heavy. While Sophia colored at the kitchen table, Rosa went down to check the mailbox. Bills, a coupon flyer, and a blank envelope with no stamp. Just her name, handwritten in small letters. Her breath caught. She looked over her shoulder, but no one was there. She didn't open it right away. Instead, she climbed the stairs slowly and stopped at the second-floor landing, where her neighbor, Mrs. Alvarez, sat in her usual plastic chair, watering the potted plants that lined her window. Mrs. Alvarez was in her 60s, with silver hair always tied back and eyes that missed nothing. She'd lived in the building longer than anyone. She knew every face, every car, every strange sound that didn't belong. "You look pale," she said without looking up. "You sleep at all?" "Not really," Rosa admitted. "Mrs. Alvarez, can I ask you something?" The older woman nodded. Rosa leaned in, lowering her voice. "Have you seen any men watching the building? Black cars, just sitting, no license plates." Mrs. Alvarez stopped watering. She didn't speak for a long moment. Then she set the bottle down slowly. "I saw 2 of them 3 nights ago," she said. "One across the street, one by the alley. Thought they were undercover, but they didn't get out, just sat there like statues." "You've seen them more than once?" Mrs. Alvarez gave a slow nod. "Last week, too, right after you came back with that little girl and a bag full of new books. That wasn't your usual shopping." Rosa hesitated, then sat beside her. The envelope weighed heavily in her hand. "I think someone helped me. At the store, a stranger, But it turns out he wasn't just anybody. Mrs. Alvarez raised an eyebrow. Rosa continued, voice quiet. I think it was Keanu Reeves. Mrs. Alvarez blinked twice, then chuckled. The movie star? Rosa nodded. He paid for my groceries, said his name was just Keanu. And now, people are watching us. I got gifts, flowers, a note, and now, this envelope. She held it up. Mrs. Alvarez stared at it. You haven't opened it? No. Maybe don't. Not here. Rosa looked at her, confused. You think it's dangerous? I think, Mrs. Alvarez said carefully, that generosity like that comes with shadows. Sometimes good people shine a light, and the wrong things crawl out. Rosa waited until she was back in her apartment before opening the envelope. She locked the door, drew the curtains, and sat on the edge of the bed. Her hands trembled as she peeled it open. Inside was a single piece of paper, folded once. She opened it slowly. There were only 4 words, printed in block letters. We know who helped you. That was it. No name, no symbol, no threat spelled out. But the weight of those words slammed into her chest like a cinder block. She stared at them, trying to read between the lines. Were they angry? Curious? Warning her? Using her? She folded the letter back up and slipped it under the mattress. She didn't know what to do. She wanted to call someone, anyone. But who? The police? What would she say? That she was being watched because someone paid for her groceries? No, it would sound insane. By the time Sophia returned from daycare, Rosa was exhausted from fear. But she smiled, hugged her daughter tightly, and tried to act normal. She made pancakes for dinner, Sophia's favorite, and turned on the old DVD player for movie night. For a little while, everything felt normal. But then, as Sophia reached under the door for a coloring pencil that had rolled away, her small fingers paused. She looked up at Rosa. Mommy, there's another note. Rosa rushed over, heart racing. Another envelope. This one was smaller, cream-colored, and tucked beneath the door. Sophia had already begun to open it. Rosa took it gently and unfolded the paper inside. This note had no handwriting. It was typed. He's not who you think. Be careful. That was all. Rosa's legs nearly gave out. She didn't tell Sophia what it said. Instead, she hid the note inside a recipe book and tucked it behind the pots in the kitchen. Then she texted Mrs. Alvarez. Another letter, different message. I'm scared. A moment later, the reply buzzed back. Come upstairs after Sophia sleeps. Don't bring your phone. Rosa stared at the message. It felt like her life had suddenly cracked open and something dark was pouring in. She looked at her daughter, soft cheeks, tiny socks, the way her head tilted as she watched the screen. And she knew one thing. No matter what this was, no matter where it led, she would protect Sophia. With her life, if she had to. That night, Rosa tucked Sophia into bed with extra care. She read her 2 stories instead of 1 and kissed her forehead 3 times before quietly shutting the bedroom door. She placed her phone on the counter, turned it face down, and pulled on a sweater. Then, barefoot, she slipped out the apartment and climbed the stairs to the 2nd floor. Mrs. Alvarez was waiting with the door cracked just enough to let her in. Inside, the apartment smelled of jasmine tea and old books. The lights were dimmed, the curtains shut tight. Mrs. Alvarez motioned to sit. I've seen this before, she said, voice low. Not with someone famous, but with people who accidentally touch something too powerful. Sometimes it's money. Sometimes politics. Sometimes men who don't like having their plans disrupted. Rosa listened silently. I think whoever helped you didn't mean to pull you into anything. But someone else noticed. Someone who watches people like him. Rosa nodded slowly. But why watch me? Because you're close to him now, even if you don't realize it. Rosa took a shaky breath. The notes, the flowers, the men in cars. It's too much. I'm not a part of his life. But you became part of his story, Mrs. Alvarez said gently. And stories spread. They make people nervous. Rosa's eyes filled with tears. I just wanted to buy food. I didn't ask for any of this. Mrs. Alvarez reached for her hand. Sometimes we don't get to choose the door we walk through. We only get to choose how we stand once it opens. Rosa wiped her face and whispered, I'm afraid. I know. That's why you're smart. Fear means you're paying attention. After an hour, Rosa returned home. Sophia was still asleep, her little chest rising and falling in the glow of the nightlight. Rosa sat beside her bed for a long time, watching her. At midnight, another soft sound came from the hallway. A knock. 3 soft taps. Rosa stood frozen. Then a white envelope slid under the door. She stared at it for a full minute before approaching. This one was larger, heavier, a wax seal pressed into the flap, an old-fashioned style. She picked it up, opened it slowly. Inside was a photograph. It showed the inside of the grocery store, the exact moment Keanu handed his card to the cashier. But the image had been zoomed in, edited. The focus wasn't on Keanu. It was on her. And beneath the photo was a single sentence. This isn't about him, it's about you now. Rosa dropped the photo and backed away. She understood one thing in that moment with terrifying clarity. She was no longer an observer in this story. She had become the target. By Monday morning, Rosa was running on adrenaline and broken sleep. Every sound outside her apartment stirred her awake. She checked on Sophia twice during the night, whispering silent prayers over her child's small, peaceful frame. When the alarm buzzed at 6:30 a.m., Rosa dragged herself into motion. She packed Sophia's lunch with trembling hands, helped her into her shoes, and double-checked the front door 3 times before leaving. The walk to the daycare was quiet. Too quiet. The morning traffic hummed, birds chirped, and somewhere down the block, a dog barked. But Rosa couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching. The sensation was no longer just paranoia. It had a weight now, a presence. She kissed Sophia goodbye and hurried toward the bookstore. By the time she rounded the corner to her workplace, she saw her manager, Tasha, standing outside, sipping coffee and unlocking the front door. Rosa forced a smile and approached. Before she could speak, a voice called out gently behind her. Rosa Martinez? Rosa turned. A woman stood a few feet away. She wore a navy blue pantsuit, pressed and spotless, with short, practical black heels. Her dark brown hair was pulled into a low, clean bun. A discreet earpiece glinted beneath her hair, and she carried a leather folder under one arm. Yes, Rosa said cautiously. The woman stepped closer but kept her distance. My name is Eva Monroe, she said. I work for a private agency. I've been assigned to your case. Rosa blinked. My case? Eva pulled a badge from her folder and held it up. It bore a silver seal and a name Rosa didn't recognize. Chiron Protective Services. The card looked legitimate. Too legitimate. Laminated, coded, and marked with a security watermark. Rosa stared at it, then at the woman's face. I don't understand. I didn't file anything. I haven't asked for protection. You didn't have to, Eva said softly. Someone else did. Rosa's pulse spiked. Who? I can't disclose that, but I'm here to ensure that you and your daughter are safe. Rosa looked around. Safe from what? Eva took a breath. That's what we're still trying to determine, but whatever's happening, it escalated. Notes, photos, surveillance. It crossed a line. You've been targeted. And we believe this was triggered by a specific act of public generosity. Rosa's voice dropped. The groceries? Eva nodded. And the viral photo that followed. Rosa shook her head. I didn't post it. I didn't even take it. Someone did, and it caught the attention of people who specialize in manipulation, leverage, and control. They want to know why he chose you, and whether there's more to the story. Rosa stood frozen, staring at Eva. Her mind raced, searching for meaning behind the woman's carefully chosen words. "This is insane," she whispered. "I'm not anyone important." Eva's eyes softened. "That's exactly why they're interested. You're not part of their world. That makes you unpredictable." Rosa folded her arms. "I have a job, a daughter. I don't even own a car. I just want this to stop." "I know," Eva said gently. "That's why I'm here." Rosa glanced toward the bookstore, where Tasha now watched through the glass door, pretending not to. "Can we talk somewhere else?" Rosa asked. Eva gave a small nod. "There's a cafe around the corner, neutral ground." 10 minutes later, they sat across from each other in a small booth, the scent of espresso filling the air. Rosa stirred her coffee without drinking it. Eva placed her leather folder on the table and opened it slowly. Inside were surveillance photos. Some Rosa recognized. Herself walking Sophia to daycare, leaving the bookstore, standing outside her building. Others were less familiar. Blurred images of a man in sunglasses. A van parked 2 blocks down. "These are real," Eva said quietly. "Taken by people we're still trying to identify." "Why me?" Rosa asked again. "Why would someone follow me over a bag of groceries?" Eva paused. "Because the man who helped you carries weight. In global circles, financial and political. But unlike others in his position, he disappears often, quietly. No press, no handlers, just him. And people are curious where he goes and why." Rosa shook her head. "I didn't know who he was. I still barely understand why he chose me." Eva leaned forward. "That's the part they can't figure out either. And that's why you're in danger." Rosa looked down at the table, at the folder, at the edge of the photo where Sophia's backpack was visible. "So now what?" she asked. "I've been assigned to shadow you discreetly," Eva said. "To keep watch, report unusual activity, and intervene if needed." "You mean you're following me now?" Eva nodded. "I've been observing for 3 days." Rosa's stomach turned. "So, the note under my door? I arrived too late that night. I reviewed the building camera and saw nothing useful. Whoever they are, they're professionals. But we're narrowing the window." Rosa stared at her coffee. "What do I tell my daughter?" "Nothing," Eva replied firmly. "She needs you calm. Let me handle the rest." Rosa met her eyes. "Can I trust you?" Eva didn't blink. "With your life." That afternoon, Rosa returned to work, her mind still spinning from everything Eva had said. She smiled at Tasha, apologized for being late, and walked straight to the back of the bookstore, pretending to reorganize a shelf while her hands trembled behind the covers. Every time the front door chimed, her heart raced. But Eva kept her word. Rosa noticed her later, sitting on a bench across the street, dressed in jeans and a hoodie now, reading a book like any other pedestrian. Just present enough to be near, invisible enough not to draw attention. After her shift, Rosa walked quickly to the daycare. Sophia greeted her with a wide smile, her pigtails bouncing as she ran into Rosa's arms. "Can we get ice cream, Mommy?" Rosa hesitated. For a moment, she thought about going straight home. But then she saw Eva again, standing farther down the sidewalk, eyes scanning the street. A nod, barely perceptible. "Yes," Rosa said, smiling. "Let's go." They walked 2 blocks to a small ice cream stand. Sophia picked strawberry, Rosa took vanilla. They sat on the curb under the warm afternoon sun, trying to pretend everything was okay. It almost worked, until Rosa noticed the same silver sedan parked nearby. It hadn't moved in 20 minutes. The driver's window was slightly down, no license plate on the front. Her stomach flipped. She gently guided Sophia to stand. "Come on, sweetheart, let's take the long way home." Sophia pouted but followed without protest. As they turned the corner, Rosa pulled out her phone and typed a quick message. Silver car, no plates, parked on Cherry Ave. She said it. No reply came. 2 blocks later, they were almost home when Rosa's phone buzzed in her hand. Gara's known. Stay inside tonight. Locks. Curtains. I'll update. She read it twice. Back in their apartment, Rosa locked the door behind them. She turned on the radio to drown out any hallway noise and sat with Sophia while she did her coloring. That night, Rosa peeked out through a small slit in the curtain. The silver car was gone. In its place was a black SUV, and standing beside it, leaning against the hood like he'd been there all day, was a figure she hadn't seen before. He wasn't dressed like Ava. He wore a dark coat, sunglasses even at night, arms crossed like he owned the street. Rosa stepped back, breath catching in her throat. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. But now, at least, she wasn't alone. She looked at her daughter asleep on the couch, and for the first time in days, Rosa whispered something she hadn't allowed herself to believe. "We're going to be okay." Even if she didn't fully believe it yet, saying it felt like planting a seed of courage she'd need for whatever came next. The next morning, Rosa barely touched her toast. Sophia was cheerful as always, humming as she packed her backpack. But Rosa's eyes were constantly drifting toward the window. The black SUV from last night was still there, parked in the same spot. Eva called at 8 a.m. sharp. "I need to see you today." Rosa's voice was tight. "Is something wrong?" Eva didn't hesitate. "Yes, I've received confirmation on what we suspected. It's time you knew everything." They met inside the empty children's reading room at the bookstore. Eva had arranged it. Tasha was told it was for security upgrades, and the area was cordoned off with a quiet sign that read, "Temporarily closed." Eva entered wearing a dark trench coat and carrying her tablet. Rosa sat stiffly in one of the small wooden chairs, gripping her knees. "Tell me," Rosa whispered. Eva sat down across from her. Her tone was steady but urgent. "The man at the grocery store, the one who helped you, his name is Keanu Reeves." Rosa blinked. "The actor?" Eva nodded. "Yes, but not as the world knows him. He was there under another name, moving quietly through East LA to support a private foundation. He often visits neighborhoods without announcing it." Rosa's mouth opened, but no sound came out. 100 thoughts collided at once. "He didn't say anything," she finally murmured. "He just paid and left." "How does that often?" Eva said. "It's his way. But this time someone caught it on camera. They posted it. It spread." Rosa's hands trembled in her lap. "But why does that matter? Why would that change anything?" Eva inhaled slowly. "Because a network saw it. Not fans, not reporters. People with dark intentions. They saw the video, recognized him, and then saw you. They believe he helped you for a reason, that there's a connection between you two. They think he trusts you." Rosa shook her head violently. "That's not true. He doesn't even know me." "But they believe otherwise," Eva said firmly, "and that belief is enough. To them, it means you have value, that you're leverage." Rosa's face drained of color. "Taylor want money," she whispered. "They want more than money," Eva said. "They want access to him, to whoever he trusts. That makes you and your daughter a target." Rosa stood up abruptly, pacing the tiny room. "This can't be happening. I didn't ask for this. I didn't even recognize him. It was just a bag of groceries." Eva's voice followed her calmly. "But it wasn't just that. It was a moment caught on film, a story people ran with, and now it's being used as bait." Rosa sat back down slowly, her legs unsteady beneath her. "What? What do they want with us?" Eva folded her hands. "They plan to abduct you, both of you. They believe they can force a ransom, or worse, make demands directly to Keanu Reeves through the public eye. They're not interested in law enforcement negotiations. They specialize in silence and fear." Rosa covered her face with her hands. "Oh God." Eve's voice stayed steady. This is why we've been watching. The moment that letter showed up at your door, everything changed. They were letting you know they're close." Rosa looked up, tears welling. "I just wanted to feed my daughter, that's all. I didn't ask for any of this." "I know," Ava said gently, "but now that you're in it, we need to act fast. You can't go back to pretending this is nothing." Rosa's voice cracked. "So what do I do? Hide? Run?" Eva opened her tablet and turned it toward Rosa. On the screen was a map. Red dots scattered across the grid of her neighborhood. These are confirmed sightings of suspicious vehicles. They've tracked your routines, grocery trips, school drop-offs, work hours. That's how serious this is. Rosa felt like she couldn't breathe. "So, what happens now? What do we do?" Eva tapped a new screen. "We relocate, you and Sophia, immediately. We have a secure property prepared. You'll be taken there under surveillance with decoys and misdirection. From there, we can develop a longer-term plan." Rosa's fingers tightened into fists. "You mean leave everything behind? My home, my job, Sophia's school?" Eva nodded solemnly. "It's temporary, but necessary. They've already crossed one line. We can't wait for them to cross another." There was a long silence between them. Finally, Rosa whispered, "Does he know?" Eva looked up. "Who?" "Keanu Reeves," Rosa said. "Does he know what's happening to us?" Eva paused before replying. "Yes. He was notified after the second surveillance incident. He's been following updates closely. He regrets that his kindness put you in danger." That sentence broke something open inside Rosa. Not anger, not blame, just sorrow. Deep, aching sorrow. "I didn't mean for this," she said quietly. "No," Eva replied. "He didn't." Rosa rubbed her temples. "What if I say no? What if I stay and fight?" Eva didn't flinch. "Then we'll protect you here. But I can't guarantee your safety. These people are smart, ruthless. They vanish without a trace." Rosa thought about Sophia, her drawings, her giggles, her dreams of being an artist. She thought about the note under their door, the silver car, the man in the dark coat. She swallowed hard. "I'll go," she said. "For Sophia. I'll do whatever it takes to keep her safe." Eva gave a subtle nod, then slid a new envelope across the table. Inside were instructions, a burner phone, and a key card. "You'll get a text this evening. When it comes, don't hesitate. Grab Sophia, only essentials. Be out the door within 60 seconds. Rosa stared at the items, heart hammering. "And if I'm not?" Eva's voice was low. "Then we assume you've been intercepted." The weight of those words hung heavy in the quiet room. Rosa finally looked up. "Does Sophia have to know?" "No," Eva replied. "Not yet. Keep it simple. Tell her it's a trip, a new adventure." Rosa gave a hollow laugh. She always wanted to see the mountains. Eva reached into her coat again and handed Rosa a small velvet pouch. "What's this?" Rosa opened it. Inside was a silver necklace, delicate, with a charm shaped like a small phoenix. "It's a tracker," Eva said, "hidden in the charm. If anything happens, press and hold the charm for 3 seconds. It'll ping our location instantly." Rosa fastened it around her neck with trembling hands. The rest of the day passed in a blur. She returned to the apartment, smiled for Sophia, made grilled cheese, watched cartoons. But her mind was somewhere else, counting down the minutes, watching every movement outside. By 9 p.m., Rosa was packed. One backpack for each of them, nothing that couldn't be left behind. Sophia slept on the couch in her favorite unicorn pajamas. Rosa sat beside her, gently brushing strands of hair away from her face. Her phone buzzed. "Now. East exit. No sound. 60 seconds. Rosa's breath caught. She scooped up Sophia, blanket and all, grabbed the bags and moved to the door. Her hand trembled as she unlocked it. The hallway was silent. She slipped out and moved quickly toward the stairwell. They descended 3 flights in darkness, Rosa's arms burning from holding her daughter, her pulse roaring in her ears. At the bottom, the exit door eased open. Eva stood waiting, dressed differently again. Jeans, a sweatshirt, a baseball cap. A black SUV idled quietly at the curb. Rosa climbed in without a word. Eva followed and shut the door. Within seconds, the vehicle pulled away. As they drove, Rosa turned to Eva. "Where are we going?" Eva met her eyes in the dim cabin light. "Somewhere no one's watching. Somewhere safe." Rosa nodded, silent. She looked down at Sophia, still curled in sleep, and felt something shift inside her. Fear was still there, yes, but now it was mixed with purpose. Whoever these people were, they'd come looking for the wrong mother. She wasn't running. She was preparing. The sun had barely crested the horizon when Rosa heard the knock on her temporary apartment door. It was soft, rhythmic, and familiar. Eva stood on the other side, holding a small paper bag and a coffee cup. "Morning," she said, her tone gentler than usual. Rosa stepped aside to let her in. "Is something wrong?" "No," Eva replied. "But there's something important I need to ask. It's about Keanu." Rosa's stomach tightened. "What about him?" "Hamill wants to meet you, in person." Rosa stared at her, stunned. "Why?" Eva set the coffee down on the table. "He feels responsible, and he's grateful. Your moment with him at that store, it changed something for him. He wants to explain." Rosa sat down slowly. "I don't understand. I don't know him. I didn't do anything special." That's exactly why he wants to talk," Eva said. "Because you didn't ask for attention. You reminded him of someone he lost." Rosa looked away. "I'm not sure I can handle more surprises." "You won't be alone," Eva assured her. "The meeting will be safe, secure, private, just the two of you, with us outside." Rosa hesitated, hands clasped tightly in her lap. "What if I say no?" "Then he'll respect that," Eva said. "But I think you might want to hear what he has to say." That evening, arrangements were made. Mrs. Alvarez was brought to the temporary apartment to watch Sophia. Rosa took extra time to explain things in a way that wouldn't scare her daughter. Just that she had to meet someone kind, someone who wanted to thank her. Sophia hugged her tight and promised not to stay up late. Rosa changed into a modest dress, her hair tied back, minimal makeup. She didn't know why she cared about appearances, maybe because the moment suddenly felt bigger than her. The drive was quiet. Eva sat beside her in the SUV, watching the rear-view mirror constantly, while the driver said nothing at all. They passed through 2 security gates, a winding driveway, and finally arrived at a secluded villa tucked into the hills just outside Los Angeles. No cameras, no press, just stillness and the warm glow of soft lights against stone walls. Eva walked her to the entrance, then paused. "He's inside," she said quietly. "Take your time." Rosa stepped in, slowly. The room was simple. Cream walls, wooden floors, and a fireplace burning low at the center. One couch, one chair, and him. Keanu stood near the window, dressed in a navy sweater and black jeans. He turned slowly, his expression soft with apology. Their eyes met. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Rosa said, "So it was you?" He nodded. It was. Rosa stood by the door, her hands clasped in front of her. She wasn't sure whether to sit or speak, or just leave. Keanu took a small step forward, stopping a respectful distance away. "Ali, I'm sorry," he said quietly. "For everything you've been through. I never meant for any of this to happen." Rosa exhaled, the tightness in her chest finally releasing just a bit. "I didn't even know who you were," she said. "Not until Eva told me." "I know," Keanu said. "That's what made it real for me. You didn't ask for anything. You didn't try to impress me. You were just you." Rosa's voice was soft. "I was just trying to buy food for my daughter." He nodded slowly. "I watched you. I know that sounds strange, but it wasn't meant to be. I was in the area, quiet visit. I saw how hard you were trying, the way you protected your daughter's joy, even while your heart was breaking. It reminded me of someone I lost a long time ago." Rosa finally sat, and Keanu followed, taking the seat opposite hers. "I've known loss," he continued. "Big, paralyzing loss. But that day in the store, you reminded me that love keeps moving, even in hardship, even in silence." Rosa felt her throat tighten. She wasn't sure what she had expected, maybe a celebrity, distant and composed. But the man in front of her was vulnerable, honest. "And now?" she asked. "Why am I here?" Keanu leaned back, folding his hands together. "Because I needed to look you in the eye and thank you. That moment with you changed the way I look at what I do. I've given a lot of money to causes, donated, sponsored, built foundations, but I lost sight of the people behind it." He gestured toward her gently. "You brought that back, not by asking, not by needing, but just by being." Rosa sat still, unsure how to receive it. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," he replied. "This meeting isn't about a transaction, it's about connection. You reminded me what it means to be human in a world that too often forgets." She looked down, then back up at him. "I was scared." "I know," he said. "And I'm sorry for that, too." There was another pause. Then Rosa asked, "Why the books?" Keanu smiled faintly. "Because every child deserves to dream, especially the daughters of mothers like you." A tear slipped down Rosa's cheek before she could stop it. "And the note?" she whispered. He looked into her eyes. "That was real. Sophia deserves more than this world sometimes offers. And so do you." Rosa wiped her cheek with the back of her hand, quietly shaken by how deeply his words landed. She hadn't cried in front of anyone since her husband died, but this was different. She didn't feel weak. She felt seen. Keanu sat forward slightly. "I've started a new initiative. It's small for now, but focused. Quiet acts of direct help. Not through press releases or red carpets, through real moments. Grocery lines, utility bills, rent payments for people no one's watching." She looked at him curiously. "Because of what happened with me?" "Because of what I saw in you," he said. "And because kindness needs to stop being anonymous." Rosa nodded, trying to absorb it all. "But I don't want attention. I don't want my daughter caught in this again." "You won't be," Keanu said. "Everything moving forward will be under your control. I won't share your name, your story, or your face. This meeting will never be mentioned again if you choose." She looked around the quiet room, still unsure how her life had taken this turn. A month ago, she was choosing between diapers and dinner. Now she was sitting across from Keanu Reeves, discussing a mission born from her pain. "Can I ask you something?" she said softly. "Of course. Why were you in that neighborhood in the first place? You don't strike me as someone who shops at corner stores." Keanu let out a quiet laugh. "I go on walks, drives. I watch the world when it isn't watching me. That day, I was scouting neighborhoods to understand what help actually looks like. Not on a spreadsheet, but in real life." He paused, then added, "It's easy to write checks. It's harder to feel what people are going through." Rosa let that sit for a moment. Then she stood, slowly. "I don't know what's ahead," she said, "but I'm grateful you saw me. Not as a cause, not as a headline, as a person." He rose too, gently offering his hand. "Thank you for letting me." She hesitated, then shook it. His grip was warm, steady, kind. At the door, she turned to him one last time. "Does this mean the danger's over?" Keanu's expression turned serious. "Not yet. But Eva will stay with you, and I will too. In whatever way I can. Rosa gave a small nod. Then we'll keep going. As Eva opened the SUV door outside, Rosa took one last look at the villa's soft lights. She didn't feel rescued. She felt awakened. The next morning, Rosa woke up to the quiet hum of the temporary apartment. The sun filtered through the curtains, painting soft lines across the floor. Sophia was still asleep, clutching her stuffed unicorn with a peaceful expression that made Rosa's heart ache with love. Her phone buzzed. A message from Eva. He'd like to see you one more time. There's something important he wants to offer. Noon. Same location. Rosa's first instinct was hesitation. She wasn't used to decisions that carried so much weight, but something inside her urged her forward. When she arrived, Keanu was already waiting. Same room, same chair, but this time there was a folder resting on the table between them. "Thank you for coming," he said softly. Rosa nodded, her posture guarded. "You said there was something you needed to share." Keanu gestured toward the folder. "Inside are 3 paths, and I want you to choose." Rosa's eyes flickered to it, but she didn't open it yet. He continued, "The first is the safest. You and Sophia disappear, new identities, a different life, in a quiet town far from this. No more threats. We'll handle everything." Rosa's breath caught. "Disappear?" He nodded. "New names, a new beginning. You'd never have to look over your shoulder again." She remained silent. "The second option," he said, "is to continue your life, but under full protection. Around-the-clock security, monitored movements, safe schools, restricted travel. You stay yourself, but not without the trade-off of freedom." Rosa's brow furrowed. "And the third," he said slowly, "is a risk, but it's the one that might change the most lives. I've been working on a foundation, one meant to help families like yours. Real help. Not bureaucracy, not press releases, food, housing, scholarships, job training. And I want you to help run it." Rosa blinked. "Run it?" "Not alone," Keanu said. "You'd be part of a team, but your story, your heart, your experience, it would shape everything. I don't want figureheads. I want people who understand." Her voice was quiet. "That sounds like a dream." "It's real," he said. "You'd have security, yes, but more than that, you'd have a purpose, a salary, benefits, a future not just for Sophia, but for every mother out there still stuck in that checkout line." Rosa's hands trembled as she reached for the folder. Inside were documents, photos, names, a full relocation plan, a detailed security briefing, and a proposal, with her name already typed at the top. Director of Outreach, Reeves Foundation for Families. She looked up at him, stunned. "You're offering me a job?" He nodded. "A chance. The same kind you deserved years ago." Rosa stared at the pages, the weight of each word sinking in. For a long time, she didn't say anything. Her fingers traced the title above her name, like it couldn't be real. "I didn't go to college," she said. "I've never managed anything except making ends meet. I'm not qualified for this." Keanu leaned forward. "That's where you're wrong. You're more qualified than most. Because this isn't about business plans. It's about understanding, about empathy. And no degree teaches that." She looked up, eyes clouded with uncertainty. "And if I fail?" "Then we learn," he replied simply. "Together." The room fell into silence again. Rosa's thoughts raced. Part of her wanted to run, to take the first option, vanish into safety with her daughter. The idea of escaping all this pressure was tempting. But another part of her, stronger than she expected, whispered something else. What if this was meant for her? What if everything that had gone wrong, the lost husband, the humiliation at the store, the fear, was leading here? "I've spent so long surviving," she whispered. "I'm not sure I remember how to live." Keanu's voice was gentle. Then let this be the beginning. Tears welled in her eyes again, but this time they didn't fall from grief. They came from a strange place she hadn't visited in years. Rosa slowly placed the folder back on the table and sat back in her chair, exhaling a shaky breath. If I take this, what happens next? You'll be trained, Keanu said. Mentored. You'll meet families who need what you once did, and you'll build something for them, with dignity, quietly, powerfully. She nodded slowly. And Sophia, she asked, will she be safe? She'll be guarded, he said, but also supported. A school scholarship, counseling if needed, space to grow. She'll never be alone. Rosa looked away, emotions rising too fast to manage. You make it sound so easy. It's not, he said, but it's worth it. She finally stood, gripping the back of her chair for steadiness. I want to say yes. I think I already have. But I need to sleep on it. Not just for me, for her. Keanu smiled. Of course. There's no pressure, no deadline, just possibility. Eva stepped into the room quietly, as if sensing the moment had reached its natural pause. Rosa turned to Keanu one last time before leaving. Why me? He stood too. Because in a world full of noise, you stayed silent. And in that silence, you showed more strength than most people do shouting. That evening, Rosa sat on the edge of the guest bed, watching Sophia draw on a hotel notepad with her favorite purple crayon. The child was humming, blissfully unaware of the storm her mother was navigating behind the scenes. Rosa's mind circled everything: new identities, constant protection, or building something meaningful with Keanu. None of the paths were easy. Each came with its own price. She glanced at the folder again, still unopened since she brought it back. It rested on the nightstand like it contained another life. Maybe it did. Sophia looked up suddenly. Mom? Rosa smiled weakly. Yes, baby. Can we stay here forever? The bed is soft. Rosa chuckled under her breath. No, sweetie, we'll go home soon. But the word home no longer meant what it used to. That night, she didn't sleep. She lay awake, eyes fixed on the ceiling, feeling the full weight of choice. It wasn't just about safety. It was about dignity. She had spent years learning how to stretch a dollar, how to calm Sophia when the power went out, how to stay strong when the world closed in. And now, someone was offering her a chance to use that strength for something bigger. By sunrise, she had made up her mind. Eva arrived just after 8. Rosa met her outside the suite, fully dressed, with Sophia's backpack slung over her shoulder. I'm ready, Rosa said quietly. Eva raised an eyebrow. For which path? Rosa's voice was firm. The third one, the foundation. Eva smiled, then gestured to the waiting vehicle. He'll be glad. Rosa took Sophia's hand and walked to the SUV. The doors closed behind them with a final, reassuring click. As the city streets rolled past, Rosa looked down at her daughter, then out the window. She was still scared. The threats were still real. But for the first time in a long while, she wasn't just reacting to life. She was shaping it. When they arrived at the quiet office building Keanu had described, he was already there, standing at the entrance. No cameras, no crowd. Just a man waiting for a promise to be fulfilled. Rosa stepped out, holding Sophia's hand tightly. Keanu gave a small nod of welcome. You're sure? He asked gently. Rosa didn't hesitate. I am. He extended his hand, and she took it without flinching. Behind them, sunlight poured across the building's glass, catching the new plaque freshly mounted near the door. Reeves Foundation for Families. Beneath it, a quote Rosa hadn't seen before. Sometimes the smallest acts carry the loudest echoes. She smiled at it, then turned to her daughter. Ready, Sophia? Sophia nodded. Ready. Rosa looked back once more, not at the danger or the past, but at a future built from the quiet courage of choosing to stand up when the world expected her to run. Keanu led Rosa into a small conference room lined with soft lighting and photographs of families from around the country. Smiling faces, community centers, handwritten letters pinned behind glass. The air was calm but purposeful, like a place where decisions were made that actually mattered. He motioned for her to sit across from him. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Keanu reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a worn leather photo holder. "These are the people I think about when the world gets loud," he said quietly. Rosa leaned in as he opened it. Inside were two small photographs. One was of a young woman with dark hair and tired, brave eyes. The other was of a man holding a child, both grinning in the sunlight. "My sister, Kim," he said, tapping the photo of the woman. "And my daughter, or at least, she would have been." Rosa blinked slowly. "You had a daughter?" "Not quite," he said, voice steady but low. "Her mother passed before she was born, and my sister fought leukemia for years. I watched her suffer quietly, without ever asking for anything. She reminded me so much of you, especially the way you stood in that grocery store, proud, scared, but steady." Rosa felt her throat tighten. "I've spent years trying to use what I've earned for good," he went on. "But I realized something recently. Kindness without connection doesn't last. It fades. People forget donations, but they remember the faces behind the change. You made me remember that." He looked up, and for the first time Rosa saw something raw behind his calm demeanor. "Helping you helped me remember who I want to be." Rosa couldn't find the words at first. Her eyes filled with tears again, but this time they carried no shame, only gratitude. She finally spoke. "Your sister, what was she like?" Keanu smiled faintly. "Strong, stubborn. She refused to let her pain define her. Even when her hair was gone and her strength was fading, she made me laugh. She believed in fighting until the very end, not because she thought she'd win, but because she knew it gave meaning to her life." Rosa wiped her eyes. "That sounds like someone worth remembering." "She was," he said, "and she still is, in every decision I make." A silence settled between them, not uncomfortable, but reflective. Rosa placed her hand over the folder again, more sure than ever. "I'll do it," she said softly. "The third option, the foundation. The risk." Keanu nodded, visibly relieved. "But I have one condition," Rosa added quickly. He looked up with a hint of amusement. "Go on." "I want Mrs. Alvarez to come with us. She's been our neighbor for years, she's practically family, and she looked after Sophia when I couldn't. I want her to be safe too." Keanu didn't hesitate. "Done." A smile broke across Rosa's face, one that came not from luck, but from strength earned the hard way. Later that day, Rosa returned to her apartment for the last time. The late afternoon light spilled through the dusty blinds, painting golden lines across the old carpet. Sophia ran ahead, grabbing a stuffed bear she had forgotten on her bed, while Rosa stood quietly at the doorway. Mrs. Alvarez was waiting in the hallway, arms crossed, concern etched across her weathered face. Rosa smiled softly. "We're going, all of us." The older woman tilted her head. "You sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything," Rosa replied. "But there's one condition I asked for." Mrs. Alvarez raised an eyebrow. "You're coming with us." The woman blinked. "Me? What would they want with an old woman like me?" "They're not offering charity," Rosa said. "They're offering dignity. And you gave us that when we had nothing else. You deserve to be part of this, to be safe, to see what you helped build." Mrs. Alvarez shook her head slowly, eyes beginning to shine. "You've always been stronger than you know, Mia." Sophia hugged her around the waist. "Abuela, come with us." "Please?" That did it. Mrs. Alvarez looked down at the child, then up at Rosa, and finally nodded. "Then, I guess I better pack my shawl." They left quietly. No big goodbyes, just closed a door on an apartment that had once held grief, fear, laughter, and survival. Rosa didn't need fanfare. She needed forward motion. By nightfall, the three of them were tucked into a private residence provided by the foundation, modest, safe, and surrounded by security she barely noticed but deeply appreciated. Rosa stood by the window, watching the quiet street beyond, while Sophia played on the rug with her bear. A knock came. Eva stepped inside and handed Rosa a small envelope. "From him," Eva said. Rosa opened it slowly. Inside was a note in careful handwriting. "Real change is built by real people. See you at 9 a.m. tomorrow." "Okay." She read it twice, then tucked it close to her chest. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring: meetings, decisions, learning curves, all new terrain. But for once, it didn't feel impossible. The next morning, Rosa arrived at the Foundation's temporary headquarters. She wore a simple blouse and clean jeans. Nothing fancy, just her, fully present. Keanu was already there, speaking with two interns who were helping coordinate outreach. When he saw her, he excused himself and walked over. "Ready?" he asked. Rosa nodded. "Let's help some people." He smiled. "That's the spirit." Together they stepped into the conference room, where plans were already being drafted. Families on a waiting list, local needs assessments, school partnerships. Rosa took a deep breath and picked up a pen. No one in that room knew her full story. But it didn't matter. She wasn't there because she was famous. She was there because she was real. And that was exactly what this mission needed. The moon hung low over the city as the relocation plan quietly began. Eva stood in the hallway outside Rosa's temporary apartment, speaking in low tones through an earpiece. Every detail had been rehearsed. 2 SUVs, one a decoy, the other fitted with bulletproof glass and blackout windows. Time was critical. There was no room for error. Inside, Rosa helped Sophia into her shoes. The little girl was half asleep, confused but obedient. "Where are we going, Mommy?" she asked with a yawn. Rosa smiled softly, brushing back her daughter's hair. "Someplace better, sweetie. Just hold my hand." Mrs. Alvarez moved more slowly, her steps careful, her small suitcase packed with the few things she couldn't bear to leave behind. An old Bible, a photo of her late husband, and a quilt she'd stitched herself during lonely nights. Eva knocked once. "It's time." They moved quickly. Rosa carried Sophia in her arms, whispering comfort as Eva led them down the back stairwell. No front door, no elevator. Everything was meant to avoid cameras and patterns. At street level, 2 identical black SUVs idled silently at opposite ends of the alley. One would head east, the other south. Eva pointed. "Get in the second one. Don't speak. Keep your heads low." They slipped inside. The windows were already dark. The driver, a quiet man with a military presence, gave Rosa a single glance of reassurance through the rearview mirror before pulling off slowly. Behind them, the other SUVs sped off in the opposite direction. Within minutes, a pair of motorcycles followed the decoy. The trap had been baited, just as planned. The real car, meanwhile, took a winding path through the city. No direct routes, frequent turns, brief stops at red lights. Every movement was calculated to confuse anyone watching. Rosa held Sophia close, her fingers trembling only slightly. "I'm hearing. I don't hear them," she whispered. "That's the point," Eva said, seated in the passenger seat beside the driver. "They're chasing the wrong car." After nearly an hour of weaving through back streets, tunnels, and underpasses, they reached the secure residence. It was part of a gated complex on the city's outskirts, where every entry point was monitored and every guest pre-cleared. From the outside, the building looked unremarkable. Inside, it was a fortress. The driver parked. Eva opened the door, then turned to Rosa. "You're safe now." Rosa stepped out with Sophia still half asleep against her shoulder. The air felt cleaner here, quieter. The city noise was faint in the distance, but it no longer clawed at her nerves. Mrs. Alvarez exited next, clutching her small bag like it held the last pieces of her old life, but even she looked relieved. Security met them at the entrance. 2 guards, polite and professional, escorted them upstairs to a third-floor apartment. Rosa stepped inside, blinking at the sight. It wasn't just safe. It felt like home. Neutral tones, cozy furniture, curtains drawn for privacy, and a welcome basket of fruit and snacks already waiting on the kitchen counter. A soft lamp glowed beside the couch. Sophia stirred and looked around. "Are we really staying here, Mommy?" Rosa kissed her cheek. "Yes, baby, we are." Rosa moved through the apartment slowly, checking each room with a mix of wonder and caution. There were 2 bedrooms. One already had a small bed made up with pink sheets and a teddy bear propped on the pillow. The other had a simple queen bed and a desk with a reading lamp. The refrigerator was stocked, the towels folded, and the heat already adjusted. Mrs. Alvarez stood in the hallway, her hand over her heart. "I've never lived in a place this quiet. It's like the city forgot to breathe here," Rosa replied. They both smiled, the kind that only came when tension began to loosen its grip. After unpacking a few essentials, Rosa helped Sophia into her pajamas. The child's energy had faded into drowsiness, but her eyes stayed on her mother as she asked, "Will those men still come for us?" Rosa paused, tucking the blankets around her gently. "No," she whispered. "We're safe now. You're safe. Things are going to be different from now on." She kissed Sophia's forehead and pulled the lamp chain. The room darkened, leaving only the glow of a soft nightlight shaped like a crescent moon. As she stepped back into the hallway, Eva appeared at the doorway. "I'll be outside," she said. 2 guards on the floor, 1 in the lobby, monitored security 24 hours a day. "You'll get some sleep tonight." Rosa nodded, her body already sagging under the release of tension. "Thank you. I don't even know what to say." Eva placed a hand on her shoulder. "Just focus on tomorrow." Rosa closed the apartment door gently and leaned against it, breathing in deeply. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, she didn't hear her heart pounding from fear. Meanwhile, across the city, a sting operation was underway. The decoy vehicle had drawn out 2 marked members of the criminal ring suspected of orchestrating the surveillance around Rosa's building. As they followed what they believed to be Keanu's connection, they were intercepted at a red light by an unmarked task force. Within seconds, both were on the ground, in handcuffs. In a warehouse on the edge of Boyle Heights, a second team moved in on a low-profile tech front, suspected of being used as a cover for tracking targets online. Data servers were seized, computers disconnected, and several workers taken in for questioning. The operation had been triggered, in part, by the viral photo of Keanu at the grocery store, an image that, despite being flagged for takedown repeatedly, had made its way into the hands of men who trafficked in digital surveillance and high-value ransoms. But the network hadn't expected the quick reaction. They hadn't expected someone like Keanu to act so swiftly behind the scenes, or for law enforcement to be alerted through private channels with influence. By morning, 5 arrests had been made. More were pending. Faces were identified. Names were handed over to federal agencies. In the secure apartment, Rosa sat curled on the couch, holding a warm mug of tea. She stared at the soft glow from the kitchen light, her thoughts finally beginning to slow. The danger had not been imagined, but now it was being dismantled. And somehow, in the middle of that chaos, a stranger's simple act of kindness had saved her life. Tomorrow, she would begin again. But tonight, she let herself rest. The Kind Heart Foundation's main office was tucked into a quiet building near downtown, its entrance modest, its purpose anything but. A brushed metal sign above the glass door read simply, "Kind Heart." Inside, the walls were lined with framed photographs. Families reunited, children holding backpacks, single parents holding their first house keys. Rosa stepped into the lobby with her heart pounding. It had been a week since their quiet relocation, a week of sleeping without fear, a week of learning how to smile again. Janet, a calm woman in her 50s with graying curls and a quick wit, met her at the reception desk. "You must be Rosa," she said warmly. "We've been waiting for you." Rosa smiled, still unsure if this was all real. "I hope I..." "Impossible," Janet said, motioning her forward. "Come on, I'll show you around." The office wasn't flashy. It was practical. Shared workstations, plants on windowsills, and a large corkboard filled with handwritten notes and updates about families the foundation had helped. Janet led her to a modest office space, not far from the main conference room. A desk had already been set up with her name on a small plaque. Rosa Martinez, Outreach Coordinator. "This is yours," Janet said. "But we share everything here. You'll meet everyone by the end of the day. For now, I want to walk you through your first batch." She placed a folder on the desk. Inside were 5 applications: families facing eviction, parents battling illness while trying to work, children without enough to eat. Rosa sat down slowly, flipping through the pages. She saw her own story reflected in each line. "This is real?" she whispered. "As real as it gets," Janet said. "We don't do performative charity. Every dollar counts, every family gets followed up on, and your voice matters, Rosa. You've lived it. That gives you something most people don't have: understanding." Rosa nodded, emotions tightening in her throat. Later that morning, as she pored over the files, she made notes on the margins. One mother reminded her of the long nights she'd spent cleaning houses while Sophia slept. One father had just buried his wife and was trying to hold down 3 jobs to keep the heat on. It was overwhelming, but it wasn't hopeless. Janet checked in just before lunch. "You're doing more in your first morning than some people manage in a week," she said, peeking at the notes Rosa had scribbled. "Don't burn out, though. This work is a marathon, not a sprint." Rosa smiled. "I just want to help them the way someone helped me." Janet studied her face. "That's why Keanu wanted you here. You're not a symbol. You're a force." That afternoon, Rosa called 3 of the families. Her Spanish flowed easily over the phone, with one mother from El Paso who was crying as she explained her gas had been shut off that morning. "We'll take care of it," Rosa told her. "You're not alone." That evening, Rosa returned home to find Mrs. Alvarez humming in the kitchen. The comforting smell of warm soup filled the air, and Sophia was at the small dining table with a workbook open and a pencil clutched in her hand. "How was school today?" Rosa asked, setting her bag down. Sophia looked up with a proud smile. "I made a friend. Her name is Kalani. She has a service dog, and they have books in Spanish and English." Rosa knelt down beside her daughter, brushing a lock of hair behind her ear. "You like it there?" Sophia nodded quickly. "It's big and clean, and the teacher let me pick a sticker when I finished early." Mrs. Alvarez chuckled from the stove. "She's been glowing since she got home, and she helped me chop vegetables." Rosa looked around the apartment. It still felt surreal. Safe, clean, quiet. But more than anything, it felt like a place where new memories were being made. Not just a shelter, but a home. After dinner, Rosa pulled out her folder from work and reviewed her notes. It was quiet in the living room, with Sophia curled up next to Mrs. Alvarez on the couch, watching an animated movie. For the first time in years, Rosa felt like her life had expanded beyond survival. She had a purpose now, not just to protect, but to lift. The next morning, she arrived at the Kind Heart Foundation with a fresh stack of applications waiting for her. As she settled in, Janet joined her with a cup of coffee and a grin. "Guess who's coming by today?" Rosa raised her eyebrow. "Keanu? He's checking in on a few program updates, and I think he wants to talk to you personally." Rosa's heart skipped. She hadn't seen him since that quiet meeting where everything had changed. A mixture of gratitude, awe, and disbelief still hung in the air whenever she thought of it. Later that day, Keanu entered the office quietly, wearing his usual plain black shirt and soft jeans. He moved with that calm presence, nodding to team members, avoiding any spotlight. When he stepped into Rosa's workspace, he smiled. "You settled in okay?" he asked. Rosa stood and nodded. "It's more than okay. I'm finding pieces of myself I thought I'd lost." Keanu's smile deepened. "That's why we do it, not just to give, but to restore." He looked at the files on her desk, his eyes scanning the notes. "You've helped 8 families already?" he asked, surprised. "I've lived in their shoes. I know how heavy it gets." He nodded, and there was something in his expression. Maybe pride, maybe relief. "Thank you for being the bridge. We needed you more than you knew." As he turned to leave, Rosa said softly, "Thank you for seeing me." He paused and looked back. "We don't just see you, Rosa. We trust you." That night, Rosa sat by Sophia's bedside as the child drifted to sleep, her breathing steady, her world peaceful. In that quiet moment, Rosa realized something powerful. She had once prayed for a miracle. Now, she was becoming one for someone else. The man sat across from Rosa, wringing his hands. His name was Darius Cole. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. His jeans were torn at the cuff, his flannel shirt buttoned wrong. But it was his eyes that struck Rosa, red-rimmed and pleading. "I don't want anything free," he said, his voice cracking. "I just need a shot. Something. Any." Rosa listened quietly, just like Janet had taught her. Darius had lost his wife to cancer 6 months ago. They'd drained their savings trying to save her. He was left with a 5-year-old son, Andre, and a mountain of medical debt. He'd been couch surfing with friends, working day labor jobs, doing what he could, but it wasn't enough. "I missed my son's kindergarten orientation because I had to choose between bus fare or food," he said, his jaw trembling. "You don't know what that feels like." But Rosa did. She leaned forward, her hands folded gently. "I do know," she said softly, "and I promise you, Darius, we're going to walk through this together." Over the next 3 days, Rosa assembled every piece of support she could gather. She reached out to a community housing partner and got Darius and Andre into a temporary apartment. She found a training program for HVAC certification that offered evening classes, so Darius could still work during the day. A nearby church-run daycare agreed to take Andre at no cost for 3 months, and the foundation offered a small monthly stipend to cover groceries. Darius showed up every morning at the Kind Heart office to check in, give updates, ask questions. He was determined, tired, but alive again. On Friday afternoon, he returned with Andre, a shy boy with large eyes and a tattered superhero backpack. Rosa greeted them both with a smile and invited them into the playroom the foundation had built for kids. There were crayons, puzzles, and bean bags. Andre lit up at the sight. "Is this for me?" he asked. "All yours," Rosa said, "and anyone like you." Darius stood behind her in silence for a moment. Then his voice cracked. "I didn't think people like you existed." Rosa turned. "Like me?" "People who remember what it's like. Who don't make you beg to be human." She felt tears rising, but blinked them away. "You don't owe me anything." Darius stepped closer. "But how can I ever repay you?" She smiled, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Someday, you'll help someone else. That's how this works." Darius nodded slowly, his jaw clenching to keep from crying. Then he pulled her into a hug. It was quick, but full of meaning. As they walked away, Rosa watched Andre skip toward the crayons. Hope had a shape, it had a name, and today it had been passed on. That evening, Rosa sat in her apartment with a cup of chamomile tea. The living room was quiet, lit softly by the warm glow of a reading lamp. Sophia had fallen asleep early after an energetic day at school. Mrs. Alvarez was humming in the kitchen, washing a few dishes. The hum, Rosa realized, had become a soundtrack to this new life, familiar, grounding. Rosa picked up the remote and turned on the small TV in the corner, flipping through channels until the headline caught her eye. Keanu Reeves expands Kind Heart Foundation to 5 new cities. The news anchor spoke with awe, detailing how the foundation had helped over 1,000 families since its soft launch. The footage showed images of food drives, housing assistance events, training seminars, and support networks blossoming across the country. Then, there it was, brief but unmistakable. A wide shot of the Los Angeles office, and in the background, a blurry image of Rosa helping a mother fill out forms while a child clutched her leg. They hadn't used her name, hadn't focused on her face, but it was her. Rosa stared at the screen for a long moment. It wasn't fame she felt. It was purpose. She had stepped into the life she used to dream about, one where she wasn't just surviving, but serving. The foundation didn't ask her to perform or pose. They trusted her because she had lived it. Because when someone came in with tears in their eyes and trembling hands, she didn't see a stranger. She saw herself. She turned off the TV and sat in silence. There was a beauty to this stillness, a power in the quiet. Her mind drifted to Darius and Andre, probably unpacking a donated set of linens or laying down on their first proper beds in weeks. She hoped they were sleeping peacefully. Then she thought of Keanu. They hadn't spoken since that afternoon in the office, but his words lingered. "We don't just see you, Rosa. We trust you." That trust had changed her. The front door opened slightly as Mrs. Alvarez stepped into the living room, drying her hands with a towel. "You're still up," she said gently. Rosa nodded. "Just watching some news." Mrs. Alvarez sat beside her and looked at her for a moment. "You helped someone today, didn't you?" Rosa nodded again, quieter this time. "I did." Mrs. Alvarez smiled. Then it was a good day. Outside, the city moved as always, cars passing, distant sirens echoing, dogs barking down the alleyway. But inside, there was peace. Rosa looked toward Sophia's bedroom. Her daughter would grow up knowing strength didn't always shout, that sometimes it whispered through kind hands and open doors, through letters slipped under the door, through strangers in grocery stores, through people like her mother. And maybe one day, Sophia would sit in someone else's chair, and she'd say the same words Rosa had offered Darius. "Someday you'll help someone else." And the circle would grow. The sky over East Los Angeles was just beginning to soften with the colors of late afternoon as Rosa pulled into the parking lot of her old grocery store. The same cracked pavement, the same flickering overhead light near the entrance that never got fixed. It had been over a year since she last walked these aisles, but every detail still whispered memories. She didn't come often anymore. Her life had shifted in so many ways. A new job, a new home, a new rhythm. But today, something had tugged at her heart, a quiet pull to return, not just for groceries, but to remember. Sophia had outgrown her favorite cereal, the one Rosa used to search for with coupons in hand. Today, she asked for the grown-up kind with dried fruit and nuts. Rosa smiled, remembering how far they'd come. She pushed the cart slowly through the store, choosing each item with calm instead of calculation. For the first time in years, she wasn't counting every dollar or eyeing her balance on a small slip of paper. The weight that had once settled on her chest each time she approached the checkout line was gone. She passed the aisle where it had happened, the frozen food section, the exact spot where her card had once been declined. The moment that had changed everything. She paused for a second and took a breath, and then she moved on. As she approached the register, there was a small line. A young mother stood just ahead of her, rocking gently on her feet, trying to calm the toddler on her hip. The child was fussing, and the woman looked tired. Rosa watched as she placed her items on the belt: diapers, rice, milk, a few canned goods, and formula. The cashier scanned the items and gave her the total. The woman swiped her card. A pause. Then the machine beeped. Declined. She tried again, this time holding the card differently, glancing back at the impatient people in line. Declined. The cashier looked apologetic but unsure what to say. The woman's face turned red. Her lips quivered. I thought I had enough," she mumbled. "Let me just put a few things back, maybe just the formula?" Rosa stepped forward quietly, placing one hand on the edge of the counter. "I've got it," she said gently. The woman turned, startled, her eyes filled with disbelief. "I can't let you—" "You're not letting me do anything," Rosa interrupted softly. "I've been where you are." The woman's shoulders dropped, and her eyes brimmed with tears. She said nothing, just nodded. Rosa smiled and swiped her card. Approved. No hesitation, no second guessing. The cashier looked up, his eyes flickering with recognition. He studied Rosa for a moment, then gave a small nod of understanding. He didn't say anything, but his expression said it all. He remembered. And now, he saw the cycle come full circle. The bags were packed. Rosa helped the woman gather her things while the toddler clung to her shoulder. She offered no speeches, no advice, just a quiet look that said, "You're not alone." As the woman left the store, she turned back briefly and whispered, "Thank you." Rosa just nodded. That was enough. Rosa stood at the checkout counter for a moment longer, letting the quiet weight of the encounter settle over her. The same hum from the store's fluorescent lights buzzed above her, but it felt different this time. The last time she was here, she had felt small, exposed, like the world could see all her desperation. Now she felt steady. After the cashier finished scanning her own groceries, he handed her the receipt with a half smile. "You really turned things around," he said gently, not asking for details, just acknowledging the truth he could sense. Rosa smiled. "Someone helped me when I needed it. I'm just keeping it going." As she walked out into the parking lot, the sunlight caught the edge of the glass doors, and she had to squint. She paused just before reaching her car. Across the lot, the young mother was still buckling her child into an old sedan, the trunk held down with a bungee cord. Rosa didn't approach. She didn't need to. This wasn't about gratitude, it was about grace. Back in her car, Rosa sat for a moment before turning the key. She looked into the rearview mirror, not at herself, but past her reflection, through the back window, as if expecting to see something. She remembered that day, the way a stranger had quietly stepped forward. No fame, no name, just a moment of unexpected kindness. She hadn't known who he was, she only knew what he did. Now, someone else would remember her for what she had done, not who she was, not where she came from. She started the car and drove slowly through the neighborhood. The streets hadn't changed much. Corner markets still buzzed with people, some tired, some joyful, all of them doing their best to get by. Kids played on cracked sidewalks, and murals on cinder block walls told stories older than memory. As she stopped at a red light, she noticed a bus bench with an ad for the Kind Heart Foundation. Keanu's face wasn't on it. No celebrities, just a simple line in big, bold letters. "You matter, and help is real." Rosa smiled again. She thought of Sophia, who was probably in class right now, working on a book report about a brave woman who helped her community. The assignment had sparked something in her. Sophia said she wanted to write her own stories someday, maybe even build a shelter for women and children. Mrs. Alvarez had said earlier that morning as she packed Sophia's lunch. "It's strange, menina. Sometimes all it takes is one person to shift everything, like a stone in a river." Rosa had nodded, her hands wrapping a sandwich with care. "And if that stone is placed right," she replied, "it can change the entire current." Now, driving past that old river of her past life, Rosa understood more deeply what that meant. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was part of the current. And today, in a place where she had once needed saving, she had become the one who stepped in. just like he did. And somewhere out there, someone else would carry it forward. The late afternoon sun spilled across the living room floor, casting golden stripes over a crumpled coloring book, a pair of sparkly shoes, and a half-eaten apple slice. Sophia sat cross-legged on the carpet, tongue slightly poking out in concentration, a box of crayons spread around her like flower petals. Rosa stood quietly in the kitchen, leaning against the counter with a dish towel in her hands. She watched her daughter from a distance, grateful for the stillness, the peace. It had been nearly a year since everything changed, since a stranger had stepped forward in a grocery store, since fear turned into hope, since kindness sparked a new beginning. Sophia looked up suddenly and waved a sheet of paper in the air. "Mama, I finished." Rosa walked over and knelt beside her. "Let me see, mi amor." Sophia beamed and handed her the drawing. It was simple, but filled with heart. 3 figures held hands in front of a building that looked like the Kind Heart Foundation. One figure was clearly Rosa, with a name tag and a big smile. Another was Sophia herself, a tiny heart drawn on her shirt. The third figure wore glasses and had curly gray hair, Mrs. Alvarez. Above them, a rainbow stretched across the sky, and underneath it, Sophia had written in crooked letters, "My family helps families." Rosa's breath caught. She smoothed a hand over her daughter's soft hair, blinking quickly to keep her tears from falling too fast. "It's beautiful, Sophia," she whispered. Sophia tilted her head, serious now. "I want to help mommies when I grow up, like you do, so their kids don't have to be sad or hungry." Rosa closed her eyes for a moment. The innocence in Sophia's voice struck her harder than anything else had. It wasn't just a child's wish. It was a reflection of the world she'd worked so hard to give her. A world where compassion wasn't a miracle, but normal. "You're already helping, Mia," Rosa said gently, kissing the top of her head. "More than you know." Sophia grinned and scooped her crayons back into their box. "Can we show it to Mr. Keanu?" Rosa chuckled softly. "You want him to see your drawing?" "Yes. He's the one who helped us first, right? Maybe it'll make him smile." Rosa looked at the picture again, at the way her daughter had captured not just people, but purpose. She nodded. "Okay, let's bring it tomorrow." Later that evening, after dinner and bedtime stories, Rosa slipped into her room and pulled out a small folder. Inside were keepsakes from the past year. Sophia's school photos, a copy of her first paycheck at the foundation, and a handwritten thank you note from the father she'd helped just months earlier. She added Sophia's drawing to the folder, smoothing it carefully so the edges wouldn't bend. Then she stared at it a moment longer. This wasn't just a picture. It was a map of where they'd been and where they were going. The next morning, Rosa and Sophia arrived early at the Kind Heart Foundation. The lobby, usually quiet until mid-morning, already buzzed with soft footsteps and low voices. Rosa held her daughter's hand as they walked past the familiar walls, lined with photos of families who'd been helped. Faces of resilience, gratitude, and second chances. Sophia clutched her drawing in both hands, the edges now tucked inside a plastic sleeve Rosa had found in her old work binder. She was bouncing on her toes. "Do you think he's here yet?" she whispered. Rosa smiled and led her toward the elevator. "Let's find out." On the top floor, past the administrative offices, Keanu had a small room. Nothing fancy, just a space where he could quietly check in when he visited. Today, he was expected for a board meeting. Janet, Rosa's mentor, had texted earlier to say he was coming in early for a few one-on-one conversations. Janet greeted them at the door. She smiled warmly at Sophia, crouching down. "Hey there, superstar. I heard you have something special to share today." Sophia nodded, proud and shy at once. Keanu stepped out from the adjoining room, wearing his usual black shirt and jeans. His face lit up the moment he saw them. "Good morning," he said gently, bending slightly to meet Sophia's eyes. "Is that for me?" Sophia held out the drawing without a word, her face flushed with excitement. Keanu took it slowly, carefully, as if it were something sacred. His eyes scanned the paper, and a faint smile touched his lips. But behind it, Rosa could see something deeper, something quietly emotional stirring in his expression. "She drew it yesterday," Rosa explained, her voice low. "She told me she wants to help mommies when she grows up." Keanu didn't say anything right away. He just stared at the picture, nodding slowly, then glanced down at Sophia again. "It's a beautiful dream," he said, "and I believe you'll do it." Sophia beamed. Keanu looked up at Rosa. His voice was soft but steady. "When I was a kid, I didn't always understand what adults carried, but I could feel it. Sadness sometimes, worry, love too. It's a gift, what she sees in the world and what she wants to give back." Rosa nodded, moved. "She doesn't know everything we went through, and I think that's the point. She doesn't need to. She only knows we made it here, and that kindness mattered." Keanu stepped aside and gestured to the chairs near the window. "Can you stay for a few minutes? I was hoping we could talk." They sat together, Sophia swinging her legs quietly while coloring a new page on the low coffee table nearby. Keanu leaned forward slightly, folding his hands. "I've been thinking a lot about legacy," he began. "Not the kind measured in movies or fame, but in what we leave behind for people like her, people who still believe in something good." Rosa looked at him, surprised by the vulnerability in his tone. He continued, "You gave me something that day in the store, Rosa. You didn't know it, but seeing you, how you held your daughter, how you were willing to go without, quietly, so she could have enough, it reminded me of my sister." Rosa's breath caught at the mention of his sister. She had heard whispers from Janet, moments shared over lunch, about the quiet pain Keanu carried, but he had never spoken of it directly to her. Until now. "She was strong," Keanu continued, "brighter than anyone I knew, even when she was sick, even when the doctors gave up. She didn't stop smiling at me. She believed I could be more than the sadness I carried." He looked down again at Sophia's drawing, tracing the crayon outlines of little stick figures holding hands. "I lost her before she got to see this part of my life. Before I learned how to give back the way she always hoped I would. That's why this foundation matters. It's not just about charity. It's about living up to the people who saw the best in us." Rosa didn't realize she was crying until a tear slid down her cheek. She wiped it away quickly, glancing at Sophia, who was still content with her crayons, unaware of the weight in the room. "I wish I could have met her," Rosa said softly. Keanu nodded. "You would have liked her. She would have liked you." The silence between them wasn't awkward. It was full of gratitude and understanding. Two people, strangers once, brought together by a moment at a grocery store, now speaking like old friends. Sophia finished her new drawing and walked over to them, holding it up. "This one's for you too," she said to Keanu. "It's me, Mommy, Mrs. Alvarez, and you. We're helping a lot of people." He chuckled and accepted it with both hands. "I'll treasure it." She climbed onto Rosa's lap, and they sat there, the three of them, watching the sunlight creep across the floor. "I used to think my life had already reached its peak," Rosa whispered. "After Diego died, and with everything that happened, I didn't believe things could be rebuilt. But you reminded me there's more." Keanu shook his head gently. "You reminded me." Sophia yawned and leaned her head on Rosa's chest, growing sleepy. The morning light was warm now, painting gold across the walls. Keanu stood, folding both drawings with delicate care, then placed them into a leather notebook he carried. "Someday," he said, "when she's older, show her what she started." Rosa smiled. "I will." Before they parted, Keanu turned one last time at the door. "This world needs more Sophias, and more moms like you. What we're building, it starts here." As he left, Rosa held her daughter tighter, feeling the truth of those words settle in her bones. Everything they had endured, the fear, the change, the uncertainty, had led to this moment. Not just safety, but purpose. And for the first time in years, Rosa no longer felt like someone simply surviving. She felt like someone becoming. The sun shone gently through the tall windows of the Kind Heart Foundation's new family center, its rays spilling across the bright mural painted along the far wall. The space buzzed with quiet purpose. Laughter from children echoed down the hallway, and the smell of fresh coffee drifted from the break room. Rosa stood near the front of the room, her heels firmly planted behind a podium bearing the foundation's simple motto, "Lead with Love." She took a slow breath as the audience quieted. Rows of new hires and volunteers, many of whom had once stood in similar shoes, struggling, uncertain, and unseen, now sat ready to begin their journey of giving back. Keanu stood in the back, arms folded, unnoticed by most of the crowd. He wasn't there to speak today. He was there to listen. Rosa glanced down at her note cards, then decided to let them fall to the podium. Her voice, steady but warm, carried across the room. "I used to think kindness was something rare, something you had to be lucky to receive, something reserved for people in better neighborhoods, in safer stories." She paused, scanning the faces in front of her. Some nodded, others leaned forward. But I was wrong. Kindness isn't luck. It's not even about circumstances, it's a choice. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. She continued, her voice gaining strength. "A year ago, I was standing in a grocery store line with groceries I couldn't afford, and hope that was wearing thin. And then a man I didn't know stepped forward. He didn't ask questions, he didn't expect anything, he just paid." In the back, Keanu looked down for a moment, almost shyly. "I didn't know then that act would change everything, not because of the money, but because it reminded me that people still care, that even in the darkest moments, a stranger's hand can pull you back to your feet." She let that land for a moment. We're here now, all of us, because someone somewhere made a choice to see us, to care, and today we get to make that same choice for someone else. Applause rose from the crowd, not thunderous but heartfelt, the kind that fills a room with something real. Rosa smiled, her eyes misting just a little. "I'm not a public speaker," she added, prompting a few chuckles, "but I am a mother, a worker, a woman who remembers what it felt like to be invisible. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's this." She placed her hand gently on the podium. "Every story matters, every single one. You don't need to be famous, you don't need to be rich. You just need to be willing to look at someone and say, 'I see you, and I'm here.' That's how you change the world. One moment, one choice at a time." The applause this time was fuller, deep. Keanu, still at the back, nodded. His eyes stayed on Rosa as she stepped down from the podium and moved toward the tables, where a line of new applicants waited for help. People just like she had been. Rosa sat beside a young mother at the intake table, her presence calm and steady. The woman looked nervous, holding a worn folder against her chest like armor. Her little boy, no older than 4, clung to her leg, eyes wide as he scanned the unfamiliar room. "Hi," Rosa said gently, offering a reassuring smile. "I'm Rosa. What's your name?" The woman hesitated, then spoke just above a whisper. "My name is Leah." Rosa nodded. "And this little one?" "Jeremiah. He's got beautiful eyes," Rosa said, "just like my daughter." Leah gave a small smile, the tension in her shoulders loosening just a bit. Rosa opened her notebook. "Why don't you tell me what brings you here today?" Leah looked down, blinking fast. "I lost my job 3 weeks ago. I worked nights at a diner, but they shut down. I've been trying to find something else, but with Jeremiah and no childcare, it's hard. Rent's overdue, my phone's off, I didn't know where else to go. Rosa didn't interrupt. She let Leah speak until the words poured out like a dam cracking. I'm not asking for much, Leah added. Just a chance to breathe. Rosa reached across the table and touched her hand. You came to the right place. She flipped to the Foundation's emergency relief section and began taking down the details. As she wrote, her voice was soft but confident. We can help with rent support, and we have a childcare voucher program that could start as early as next week. We'll also get you signed up for a job coaching session. They'll help with resumes and interview prep. Leah's eyes filled with tears. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, Rosa replied. Just promise me something. Rosa smiled. When things turn around, and they will, you help the next person who walks in scared and tired like you did today. Leah nodded slowly. I will. I promise. Across the room, Keanu stood with Janet, observing without interfering. His arms were still crossed, but his expression had softened into something between pride and gratitude. She's incredible, Janet said. She was always incredible, Keanu replied. She just needed the right light to be seen in. Janet watched as Rosa crouched down to speak with Jeremiah, handing him a sticker and gently ruffling his hair. You know, Janet said, we could have picked anyone to launch this project with you. Celebrities, politicians, names that attract attention. Keanu didn't look away from Rosa. We didn't need attention. We needed truth. And she is the most honest person I've ever met. They watched in silence as Rosa helped Leah to her feet and walked her toward the next step in the process. No fanfare, no spotlight, just kindness, one quiet act at a time. In the corner of the room, a framed photograph of Rosa and Sophia hung beneath a plaque that read, Every act of kindness is a seed. Plant it, and you change the world. The camera would have faded there, capturing the soft glow of a mother helping another mother, their children safe nearby, their stories no longer hidden in the shadows.